everyone. It's June 10th here in Kentucky, and we're getting ready to pull supers for honey extraction. So this is one of the most exciting times in beekeeping. This is when all the hard work throughout the year really pays off. So I figured I'd bring you guys along for the ride so you can see how we do the process. So here we go. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. Now, everybody does extraction a little bit differently. It's personal preference, as is 99% of beekeeping. My dad and I made these fume boards is what I use. There's all sorts of ways to get bees out of the super. There's bee traps where you can put those, come out here the day before, you put those underneath the super, the bees go down, but they can't get back in. So that's one way. You could literally trap the bees out of the super, but that takes time, and I don't know what kind of a success rate it has. I've never tried it. There's other methods, but the one that I prefer, at least the one that I've been using, is called a fume board. So this is just 1 inch by 2 inch pine that I cut up and made, and then the top of this is aluminum, and I spray painted these black on top, actually black all over, and then there's piece of felt that I glued on the inside that you end up spraying the honey bandit on. There's like honey robber, honey bandit, there's different solutions out there. I've had pretty good luck with this honey bandit. It's really stinky stuff that the bees really hate. I don't think it's that bad. I put it in a spray bottle so that you can spray. It doesn't take many sprays, maybe 4, 5, 6 sprays on this felt. To me, it smells like cherry floor wax is what it smells like, but the bees absolutely hate it. And you can put one of those on top of the super and leave it there for about 7-10 minutes, and the bees will completely evacuate. It gets well over 95-97% of the bees out. And then for the rest of the stragglers, I just use a blower and end up blowing them out, which you'll get to see on the video. So we'll go ahead and get started on the first hive here. Try to keep my water in a shady spot. Started somewhat early in the morning. You really want the sun to be beating down on top of the fume board, which is why you paint it black and why it's made of aluminum, because it'll really absorb the sun's rays, and it heats up this felt that's sprayed with the honey bandit and really helps push those fumes down into the hive. I don't know what kind of honey we're going to get on these 4. I know some of the ones down there have quite a bit of honey on them, but we'll just see as we go. I got some extra frames because I may end up cherry picking some frames, and my plan is to put, if one of these supers is full and one of them's not, eventually I want to put one wet super back on all of these hives, because we're still somewhat in a flow here in Kentucky. So I want to maximize the amount of honey. So I'm going to put a super back on. I'm not going to treat for mites yet. Cross my fingers and hope they do okay. But yeah, to be determined on that. It's already warm out here. And standing in the sun, Dad.
It's gonna get warm.
I know, it's gonna get even hotter. So I got my dad out here helping me today. He's gonna, as I pull these supers off, he's going to put them in the back of the UTV for me and keep them covered. I don't think it'll be much of an issue today, but if you do this like during a summer pull when it's getting pretty dirty out and there's a lack of available food sources, you can set off a robbing event pretty quickly where bees will just pounce on that honey that's out here in the open. And so we cover it with bed sheets and drop cloths to keep the bees out of it while I'm extracting. So, all right, let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. I think this hive is, I have 2 hives that I know of, at least last I checked, were queenless. I think this is one of the queenless hives. I don't anticipate a lot of honey coming off this one. I don't see a lot in here. I'm gonna take a look at this middle frame and see what we're looking at. Now, see, there's some honey in there, but not much. So this super I'm just gonna set aside, and I'm gonna give it back to the bees and check the one on the bottom and see if it's ready to pull. Yeah, this is pretty light. There's some honey in here, but not much to be concerned with. Now this definitely has plenty of honey in it, so we'll go ahead and get the bees out of this one. So I just kind of spray the fume board here with the, make sure you get it all the way around. I'm just doing small squirts. And then you just set it on top. Leave a little bit of the corners open so that air can circulate. And I can already hear them roaring in there. So I'm going to leave this on here for about 10 minutes. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to move on to the next one. Were you asking a question, Dad? This hive has a bunch of ants that got up in it. It's always fun having to deal with that. Yeah, they definitely don't like this stuff. They're certainly complaining in there. It almost sounds like the queenless roar that you get. I've been meaning to dust the bottoms of these cinder blocks with diatomaceous earth to kind of help. It helps keep the ants down. It doesn't hurt the bees. It's not a chemical. It works as a physical kill. It cuts the exoskeletons of the ants. It ends up killing them that way. Of course, the bees aren't crawling on the cinder blocks, so it doesn't hurt them in any way. Let's see. But normally I don't have many issues with ants, but this year's been worse than normal. Yeah, definitely some good amount of honey up here. Go ahead and knock those bees off. Somebody told me that if you see this on the top super, if you see all this comb, it means that you lost out on some honey. You should have had another super on top. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it sounds good. Go ahead and set that comb aside. And the first one I go a little heavier. The subsequent sprays, you know, since the smell's already well in the felt, you don't have to spray as much. And you can't overdo it. You don't want to, you don't want to drive the bees out of the hive. You're just trying to get them out of the super. Force them down. While we're waiting, I'll bring the camera over here so you can kind of hear them roaring. They're not big fans of me doing this, obviously, but if you can hear them. You can kind of hear them roaring in there. Honestly, it sounds pretty similar to like the queenless roar. And they're not pouring out of the hive, so that's how you know, like, you didn't overdo it. Can you smell it, Dad? Yeah, it smells like That cherry floor wax is the best way that I describe it. But we just leave them sitting on there, see how the bees are really trying to get out. So they just absolutely hate this smell, and they will get out of there. And it forces them down into the next super, and then you pull this one, cover it, and then so on and so forth. So it takes a long time to get through. I think I have 22 supers to pull this year. Last year I only had like, I don't know, 8. I got 120 pounds last year off 2 colonies, just 2 colonies. So who knows what I'll get this year, but I'm pretty excited. We'll see. I don't think it's been a great honey crop. I heard people down south are really complaining it's like one of the worst years they've had in like 50 years, maybe down in Georgia, Florida area. I think it was Florida. I think the Suttons are down there too, and I know Rick's been posting a lot of struggles that he's been having with getting a honey flow this year. So some of those commercial beekeepers, it's been pretty bad for them. The backyard hobbyists like us, you know, it's, if we get honey, great. If not, it's, you know, I'm not gonna say it's no big deal, but it's not gonna affect us like it does the commercial folks, operators. So it sucks, you know, when your business is insects and is heavily dependent on Mother Nature, you really don't know what you're gonna get. So, okay, I'll put the camera back on the stand here, and then we got just a couple more minutes on that first one, and we can start to pull our first super. Okay. Hold on to those for me, Dad, please. I don't need them quite yet. I'm gonna be blowing bees out here in a minute. Scoot this one down, because this one's going back on the first hive. And with really large colonies, which I generally don't have since I have single brood management, if you've got like, although I do have one over there that has 4 supers on it, if 4 supers stuffed with bees, trying to push all those down into one single deep, that's gonna be a problem. So I'm gonna have to make sure that I leave at least 1 super for all those forager bees to have a place just to hang out and not get pushed down inside the brood area, which can really be an issue, just kind of interfere with everything the nurse bees and the queen are trying to accomplish down there. So it's just an assessment that you have to make as you're looking through this to see how full that brood area is, and, you know, do you need to just give them another super just for space purposes, not necessarily honey purposes. Getting warm out here. You know, I got all this red clover out here, and I haven't seen a lot of bees on it, unfortunately. I've seen bumblebees on it, and I think that's the general census from beekeepers, is they don't care for it that much. Somebody was saying, though, once it gets cut down or the first crop of red clover comes up, it'll come back shorter and smaller, and then the bees are able to forage on that easier. Right now, I think red clover just seems to be too big, and I don't know if they can't get their tongues down in there to get the nectar out, or why they don't prefer it. But they're all over the white clover that's in our yards, but they haven't really touched, from what I've seen, this red clover. They did early on in the spring, but I haven't seen them on it recently. Oh yeah. I'll go ahead and show you a frame here. It's some dark honey, and it's not fully capped. You see it's only capped up here, but for being spring honey, this is dark, and looks like some of this stuff is about 50% capped or so. So we'll be sure to check the moisture content, but you can also do the shake test. Wherever you shake this as hard as you can and nothing comes out at all like that, like literally nothing's coming out, that's a pretty good indicator over 90% chance this stuff is good. I mean, it looks thick too. You can just tell the difference between honey and nectar, and it's not runny. So this is gonna be some delicious liquid gold here. I'm sure of it. Get that. All right, let's get this ready to pull. Dad, you ready with the cloth?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to blow the rest of these bees out and then I'll carry it over to you.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and start on the third one because I'm gonna pull this off and put it on the next one. You just keep going in kind of an assembly line is how it works. Got this. All the bees are pretty calm today, you know, especially for stealing all their honey. There's a couple frames in this one. I'll probably cherry pick it. And then it'll be one of the supers that I end up putting back on the hive. And what I may do is I may go get a tub and put these frames that are full and exchange them for the frames that are less full. I don't know. I'll figure that out in a minute, but I'm going to trip over that at some point. Okay, let's go ahead and get this first one in. Oh, that's pretty heavy. Oh boy. Get the last of these bees out. That's probably 30, 40 pounds. Now, I'm certainly not going to suggest that the bees love that, but it doesn't really hurt them. Okay. We're going to need to get two in here. So. Scoot it. You want to scoot it? Yeah. Let me get it covered. Yeah, obviously they don't love that, but the reality is it doesn't really hurt them. It just blows them off the comb and they come back to the hive. This colony's got a lot of honey in here as well, so definitely take in extra spares. So I'm going to put this super right back on. Again, really my focus on this colony is to get it to requeen itself. It's not been easy. One down, 13 to go. All these stupid ants. You know, the ants are more of a nuisance. As long as the bees are able to guard the area, they'll keep the ants out. I still find them really annoying. And I try to help the bees as much as possible. I used to have, if you watch some of my earlier videos, I used to have these moats down here that the cinder block would sit in water. but the plastic busted, and then it was like a mosquito harvesting sort of production. And I didn't really want a bunch of mosquitoes back in here helping them survive and flourish, so I ended up just getting rid of them.
I'm not sure that's down flat. The top.
I think it is. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
All the ants are running out. The ants get up underneath this melamine in here. Okay. Yeah, they're definitely almost out of this one. And this is the way you just keep systematically working down, and that's why it's nice to have 2 fume boards, because while I'm working on one hive, this can be working on another, so it keeps it more efficient, keeps it flowing better. This definitely has a lot of honey. I think this is going to be a pretty heavy super here. Go ahead and get this one off. Oh yeah. Same, that's a good 40 pounds. Take a look here. Yep, lots of honey there. Put this back on, keep them down. Blow the rest of the bees out of this one.
Three hours later.
Okay, we're back in the shop. We've got 4 supers pulled off those 4 hives, pretty stuffed. Quite a bit of honey in these. One super I had to take back. It actually still had some brood in it that had not emerged yet, so gonna need a little bit more time on that. So we've got the extraction set up. Here's my VEVOR extractor. It's a 4-frame extractor. It can hold 4 deeps or 4 shallows. Works pretty well. Used it last year, worked great. Got the honey gate, double screen, stainless steel filtration, and then putting it in these Tractor Supply BPA free food grade buckets. So I've got several of those. I use this Pierce Beekeeping uncapping tub and this Pierce hot knife that plugs into the outlet, gets super hot, and I use it to cut the comb off. And then all of the cappings collect in this uncapping tub. The honey will drain down through the stainless steel grate, and then I can pour it out here. And then last year, there's a lot of cappings that get honey stuck in the cappings, and it just wasn't falling through here. So I went ahead and bought this press, stainless steel press. Hi, Peanut. My daughter just walked in. She can come over here. Say hi for the camera. And so I'll put all the cappings in here after the honey has drained down, and I'll go ahead and press this and try to get the last bit of honey out here, and I'll send it through the filtrations. You want to say hi? Can you say hi? Say hi. Hi. Isla, how does the bee go? Bzz, good job. Okay. So yeah, that's it. I'll take you real quick through the operation. First thing you have to do is test the honey. I've got this refractometer, just off Amazon, works pretty well. I calibrated it yesterday using olive oil, so I know it's spot on. And then I've got the labeling and everything else. We'll get ready, and then of course all the bottles there for the honey to go in once we're ready. So I'll go ahead and take you through a couple steps of the process so you can see how the extraction works. First thing that we're going to do is pull these frames, individual frames, out of the super, and that's this year. I think I said in other videos I only use 9 frames, so you see how much fatter that comb is, which is really nice. It makes it a lot easier. When I pull the frame out, I'll show you. It makes it a lot easier to uncap, or at least I'm guessing it's going to make it a lot easier. It's the first year I've done it, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here's the first frame. You can see it's mostly capped. Different color there is depending on what the bees were foraging on. And you can see it's pretty thick comb there. Not as thick as some of the others, but we'll go ahead and test this one, make sure that this super and the honey are good to go. But like I was saying before, if you just shake, if it passed the shake test, there's a good chance that it's gonna be fine. I generally just take a little bit of honey.
Show me your
Oh yeah, so this is the tool here. You just put a little bit of honey on top of here, make sure it covers the entire surface, and then you can look through here over at the light. And you really want the moisture content to be around 16, 17%, somewhere in that range. Anything over, I think it's 18 or 18 and a half, you have to be careful. It could end up fermenting in the bottle and the honey will taste terrible. So you really want to make sure that it's dry before you end up extracting it. Otherwise, you know, you're going to pay for it later. So if it does end up being too high, all you have to do is end up just putting these supers right back on the hive is all you have to do. Try to just make sure that there's enough honey. Like I said, you want to cover the entire surface. Don't really want to get any wax cappings on there. I'll just kind of smash that down. Make sure that it's covered. And I'll just go over here and check it out. So this is reading at about 15 and a half to 16. And what I end up doing is I just take samples, periodic samples throughout the process while I'm extracting. So I'll take 2, maybe 3 samples from each super. And that just ensures that, again, I don't want to bottle any honey where the water content is too high. So we want good, thick bees in the weeds honey. So how long has this been plugged in, Dan? You know?
Probably about 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. And this process takes a while. I mean, you know, you can count on spending a full day or 2 doing your extractions because it just takes time to get those supers off the hive. It takes time to set up. If you don't have a dedicated honey house, it takes time to get everything set up. And but it's worth it. Pays off in the end. So this uncapping tub has a screw on top, and all that does is it helps you hold the frame in place as you use your knife here. Now, with this being a little bit thicker this time, it should, and it is, cutting open a little easier. I don't think this knife is completely up to temperature yet, so I'm having to Use a little bit of elbow grease here. Isn't that beautiful? And so on the edge here, I'll just take you want to make sure the top of those cappings are uncapped, obviously. You won't be able to extract it in the spinner, centrifuge. I don't have a scraper, but this is where I think, using this hot knife in conjunction with a scraper really pays off, because then you can just kind of scrape the last bit of cappings here. Once this knife gets up to temperature, it's a little easier. All right, I think most of it's open. On the other side, they had just started drawing. So this is one of the frames towards the very end of the super, so it's not going to be loaded. All right. Then go ahead and just transfer it over. And you want to make sure that it's facing outwards, because this uses centrifugal force. So you want the honey facing towards the outside, because that's what it's going to get. That's what it's going to sling against the outer walls here. So let me go ahead and grab another one. It's not hot at all. It's not plugged in. That's why. So, note, as a professional homeowner, you want to make sure you plug the knife in. I thought it wasn't hot at all, but there, that makes a lot of sense. I thought you said you plugged it in, Ed.
You just asked me if it was hot.
Oh, okay.
How long has it been?
I'm like, this does not feel hot. So look at the difference in the color on this one while we're waiting for that knife to actually get hot. So you can tell the different flows, the different pollens, sources of nectar that were coming in. That's some good looking honey. And again, oops, shake it, nothing comes out. Pretty good indicator that you're good to go. Let's try this again. Wow, amazing how much nicer that is, how much easier that is when you actually turn your knife on. So now I can feel the heat coming off of it too. Definitely easier when the knife is turned on. But these cappings is really how we as beekeepers get a lot of our wax, is during the honey extraction process. I mean, yeah, you get some wax here and there when you're doing inspections, but where it really where you really start to get a lot of it is when you start to harvest the honey. See the difference in colors too. All right, that one's pretty open. Yeah, will you go get me a paper towel, please? Go ahead. Transfer this one. And you really want to try to balance your extractor, meaning you want equally weighted frames on each side, so when it spins, it doesn't shake. Doesn't shake too bad on you. Go ahead and grab the next one. Now we're starting to get into the pretty thick ones for the comb, so it should be easier to extract. There's some open honey there. Hasn't quite been capped yet. What I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna go ahead and test the uncapped honey, just to make sure, again, everything's on the up and up. I probably tend to over test, but I really don't want the honey to have too much water in it. My high tool again. Up a few of these cells. A big old blob of honey there. Really, you can almost tell just how thick it is. I mean, when you've been doing this long enough, it's pretty easy to tell really thin honey between really thick honey. It's just more runny. And as expected, the uncapped is a little higher, so this was coming in at about 16 to 16 and a half, which is perfectly fine. So we're gonna go ahead and extract this. I like to have mine, 17 and a half or less is really where you want it coming in at. I think some people bottle at 18. You can. I just think you're starting to flirt with trouble there. Clean that up for me pretty good. Seems like I still got some more. Okay. Get this next one going. Awesome. Right. Definitely a messy process. I'm gonna turn the extractor here. All right, one more, and then we'll get spinning. I always find the difference in color amazing. Just wild to me. Depending on what they were foraging on, will determine the color. Yeah, that's cool. All right, let's get this one in the extractor. Now I bolt my extractor to the floor because it does have the tendency to want to shake if it's imbalanced. Think of it like a washing machine during the spin cycle. If the clothes aren't evenly distributed, it'll start to walk on you and bounce. And so this is kind of similar. So before you spin, make sure you have everything in place. Make sure you have your bucket on the floor. Make sure that your filtration, which is just the only thing that I use, because it's not really filtered, this just keeps any B parts and wax cappings out, but it's just 2 stainless steel mesh filters. That's all it is. And it's a pretty fine mesh on the bottom. This one's a little thicker, just sits in on top of itself, and that's the only filtering. And that lets all the pollen and the honey and the enzymes flow on through, but keeps any bee parts or anything else that you would likely not want in your honey out. Now your first few extractions, you can leave the honey gate closed, but one word of caution, you don't want to get the honey too full in here to where the bottom of the frames in the spinner is hitting the honey. That can damage your motor. So you really want to keep your honey gate open as you're extracting after the first 3 or 4 extractions. It's not a big deal on the first one because the honey's not high enough yet. So yeah, that's it. Just make sure that your lid's closed, turn your extractor on, and you want to start slow. You know, there's no rush to this, and you want to slowly turn your dial up, and the honey will start flinging out. If you go too fast straight from the beginning, you're going to increase the instability. You want to slowly increase it, let the honey sling out. If you want to take it off the tripod, Dad, you can push here. Hold that. Thank you. And then you can see that one. Put that out of the way. And you can already see the honey starting to accumulate on the wall, on the sides of the walls there. So I'm slowly increasing the speed here. Still a little unbalanced because that one frame in there was lighter than the other 3, but that's what happens. If it starts getting uncontrolled like that, you just back off. So I'll turn it down now, and quite a bit of the honey has come out of the one sides, and so now I'm going to rotate the frames and turn them around, and that should help with the balancing. Too bad you can't smell smell this from home, but it smells amazing in here. So that's kind of what it looks like when it's slung out. And this other side's empty. So that's really where kind of the weight issues are coming from, the imbalance issues. But that's fine. Once the honey starts coming out of the other sides of these, that'll really help. And then I'll rotate them back again so that I can really sling the other sides at the top speed for a few minutes. That should be it. And now I'm able to let it go to full speed. see the honey on the sides of the wall there and starting to collect at the bottom. All right. Go ahead and turn this off. We'll get the other side spun, and then I'll show you all when we open the gate what that looks like. So I'll show you here in just a minute. Okay, so we have slung several frames of honey through the extractor, and you can see all the nice golden honey at the bottom that's drained down from the sides of the extractor here and collected in the bottom. And you can see the honey gate there. So it's starting to get, it's actually almost over the honey gate. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this and show you what this looks like as we start to strain the honey and get it into the settling bucket. This is the fun part. And it will slowly filter through that double stainless steel mesh. Any of the wax cappings or B parts or anything else will get caught up above. And it'll start dripping down into the bucket. You can tell it's thick honey because it hasn't even started to drip yet. There, it just started. That's how you know it's thick. So then once all the honey is extracted and these buckets are filled up, I let the buckets sit for a few days to settle. What that does is it lets all the air bubbles that are in the honey down here float to the top, and then you can kind of skim that off. It's just for cosmetic purposes. Just doesn't look good to see a bunch of bubbles in your honey in the bottle. So generally like to let that settle and then go ahead and bottle afterwards. So I'll show you the final process after a few days and this honey settles and I get ready to bottle it. I'll show you what that looks like.